Hey folks, this is going to be a short one. I wouldn't call this a sermon, I'd just call this a little snippet. Um, but anyway, I got to thinking about something, and I was thinking about, um, I was having a conversation with somebody, and it took me a minute to figure out how hilarious the response to my concerns were. So anyway, uh, we're having a conversation kind of based on along the lines of, your whole life has been a lie and you just figured it out. Like, for example, and this is just one example, but, for the longest time, we believed that we might potentially get sent to some burning hell for 100,000 years or something. Not too long ago, not what, 10, 20 years ago, we were believing stuff like that. Okay? So that's what we emphatically believed that. We believed that at once upon a time that every little decision that you made, we were so indoctrinated with that every little decision that you made, write down, and it's funny to look at it now, but every little decision that we would have made, we would have second thought. Well, you couldn't do anything that you didn't have in the back of your mind that what you were getting ready to do might send you to hell to burn for 100,000 years. That was what we believed essentially. You couldn't go down the road. You couldn't break the speed limit by a mile or two to pass somebody or something. Depending on how bad a shape you were in believing stuff like that. That you couldn't even pass somebody on the road and go past 55 mile an hour or something by a couple mile an hour over, which would have probably been the safer thing to do anyway. So you could get through the straight stretch and pass them. You couldn't do something as simple as that without thinking, is this going to send me to hell? Am I going to burn for 100,000 years because I did this? That was the craziness that we believed. But that's what we believed, stuff like that. And so anyway, the conversation didn't go exactly that way, but the conversation was basically the same. The same concept is that, imagine something like that, and then one day you just recognize, hey, that was all a complete lie. The whole thing was a complete lie. Okay, and it's just like you snapped out of it one day, yesterday. And for the first 20, 50, 75 years of your life, you believed that. Okay? And then just one day, it turns out that was just all a big lie. Okay? And then somebody would look at you and you would tell that to somebody and be like, you know what? My whole life's been, everything that I believed for 50 years has been a lie. 50 years of every single thing that you did. And every single thing that you thought of was manipulated in such a way as this. Every single thing you did. And then one day you just recognized, you know what, it was all a complete lie. And then somebody looked at you, or basically a complete lie, and then somebody would look at you and be like, well, try not to let it bother you. That's the answer that I get a lot of times with certain things is, try not to let it bother you. And I'm like, try not to let it bother you. Your whole life was a lie up until just 10 minutes ago. You realize that everything that you did for the first 40 years of your life was a lie. Okay? And you just recognized that 10 minutes ago, and you tell somebody, and they look at you and be like, well, try not to let it bother you. Try not to let it bother you. I was talking to my wife, and I was like, imagine, God forbid, that, somebody, let's say their whole family died in an earthquake, or something. So their house collapsed, and everybody just happened to be there. It was New Year's Day, and it killed the whole family. It's like, and somebody come and said, hey, your whole family's dead, and then you went to somebody else and you said, oh, my whole family's dead, and then they looked at you and be like, well, try not to let it bother you. Try not to let it bother you. That's humorous. That's a humorous response to that. It's humor. It's humorous to think what kind of a response that is to what happened there. And I find I find that the same exact type of thing. I hope you all understand what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that that's just, technically you can't say that that's wrong. When a person says, well, try not to let it bother you, your whole family died, and somebody comes and tells you, and then you tell somebody else, you turn around and tell somebody else, and be like, my whole family's dead. And they look at you and be like, well, try not to let it bother you. That's just not the response that you would have. That's just, try not to let it bother you. Your whole family's dead. Isn't that a little bit of a funny response? Once you get to thinking about it, that's humorous. Well, technically, yeah, try not to let it bother you because you really can't do anything else. But there on the same hand, is that what you would tell somebody? Try not to let it bother you. Your whole family's dead. It's just, it's humorous. It's funny. And so anyway, what I have found is, what I find now, and what I have found, is that in the message, you've got the exact same thing going on. I run into this all the time. And people, I think they look at me like, I'm funny because I say these things. Well, let me explain to you what the situation is here. Why do I feel the way I do? Why do I look at the responses I get out here with humor? I get humorous responses from people in, the message people or the love divine people, the whatever you want to call them, the spiritual energy side of things. I get responses that are so ridiculous that they are humorous. And that's what I'm saying. Look, your whole family's dead, and somebody's like, well, trying to let it bother you. That's so ridiculous that it's humorous. It's funny once you get to thinking about how ridiculous that response is. And let me give you an example. Let me turn it over to the message here. I can remember a time where, it's what I'm saying is something very serious. And you get a response like that. Your whole family's dead, and somebody says, well, try not to let it bother you. It's just, you got something serious has happened. And then it's like somebody would look at you and say, well, try not to let it bother you. It just don't fit. And don't get me wrong. Like I said, I realize there's nothing you can do. I realize you might as well not let it bother you that your whole family's dead. I realize that. I realize that there really is nothing you can do. But my gosh, is that response is just still humorous. It's ridiculous. Something so serious, and you would answer it by that. So I'll tell you all a story. One that I know that many of you have run into yourselves. I can remember being down in the Message Church, and I remember when I first heard about the third coming. I first heard about, the Alaska earthquake and 1964. Hey, well, that turned out that wasn't just some random earthquake, and that accompanied William Branham's message. That was, in fact, the same earthquake in modern form that was the one that was on Golgotha's hill when Jesus was crucified. Okay, so we turn the King's Sword, the indictment in 1963, the William Branham saying that the rapture had already been fulfilled, and that this day the Scriptures fulfilled, all that stuff that had been fulfilled. Well, we had just learned that. Well, it turns out that all that stuff wasn't just stuff. Essentially, it wasn't just John the Baptist type of stuff like they believed it. It was by dogged. It was the actual return of Christ. Okay, and we had just figured that out. And then, so you could go. Then you go the next day. You go the next day after you've heard that. Lo and behold, you turned on YouTube and you found Don Parnell, and here he's saying, hey, all this stuff wasn't just a bunch of stuff that happened. It was in fact the return of Christ, or whoever you heard it from. And then you go back to the Message Church the next Wednesday, and you're like, hey guys, that indictment message in 1963? Gee, that wasn't just William Branham saying that, it was some sort of something that was crucified. That was the actual crucifixion of Christ. And you start telling them all this stuff. You're like, that Alaska earthquake, that was really the earthquake of the second coming of Christ, the whole thing. and stuff like that. You tell them like serious stuff that you're like, my whole life had been a lie up until yesterday, up until I turned on Don Parnell on YouTube just yesterday. The first 20 years of my life had been a lie. Christ has already come and redeemed us of everything, which he was already here, always here anyway. But now I know, hey, he redeemed us with, I didn't have to live like I was scared to death I was going to go to hell for the past 20 years. Okay, something that great, something that serious. And you go talk to and I remember doing this. You go, start telling that to message people. And what do? They look at you and they're like, well, that's just a difference of an opinion. And, we just have a difference of an opinion with you. And, or they don't even look like it. They don't even say that. They're just like, well, I mean, there's different ways of looking at it. And at the end of the day, we just say, well, just love everybody. That's the main thing, is just love everybody, And I'm like, love everybody? What are you talking about? This is everything that we believed was a lie. And I would just got it myself and come down here to tell you guys, hey, essentially, you're free. It was like the slave on top of the mountain whenever he seen the sunrise on the day that everybody was supposed to be free, and he seen it, and he saw, he climbed up to the top of the mountain, with the story William Branham told. And he told everybody, it's like, you're free, and it's something that important in a sense, It's like, this is very important stuff. Hey, it's like I'm telling these message people, I'm like, gee, we don't have to worry about going and burning in hell for 100,000 years for going over the speed limit. Gee, Christ has already returned, and in fact, he never left at all. Gee. And they look at you and they're like, well, we have differences of opinions on different things, and the main thing is just love everybody. And I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? Are you kidding me? Something that good and that serious and that important, and your answer to it is, well, just love everybody. That's ridiculous. That's just as ridiculous as somebody, your whole family died in an earthquake, and you told somebody, you're like, my whole family just died in an earthquake, and they look at you and like, well, try not to let it bother you. It's ridiculous. And I'm sick of this ridiculous stuff. I'm sick of it. Think about how important that was. You all love diviners. Anybody that would hear this, you love divine people. You third coming, my own third coming people, okay? Love diviners, third coming. Everybody of us believes this simple thing that Christ has returned. Something that, I want to simplify it because it's important to what I'm saying, but we would go to the message people the day after we learned that and tell them that, hey, Christ has returned, the very thing that you guys have been looking for hundreds, if not thousands of years, whatever. All this, the very thing that your whole life is focused on, it happened. Okay? And then they look at you and they're like, well, I don't know, we got different ways, people's got different ways of looking at it, and the main thing is just love everybody, brother. What? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? That's the response I got when I tried it. Now, I didn't stay there very long and try it, because I knew I wasn't going to go nowhere, So anyway, I got out of there, but it's just, what a ridiculous response is what I'm saying. The thing that you have been preaching about for 80 years of your life, these old time preachers, every thing that you've been studying every day, all this and that, and been preaching about and been living about, and all this and that, and oh, by the way, it's here, it happened, and you're like, well, just love everybody. The very thing that you all claimed that you were focused on. You're like, well, just love everybody. Okay, how ridiculous. How purely ridiculous. And then I'm going to finish it up on this. What I'm telling you all is I have found the very same thing today. I have found the very same ridiculous response to what I have had to say today in the love divine and spiritual energy type of mentality out here. They have got the same ridiculous stupidity of a response. Because here's what happened. Back in the day with the message, it was all these ideas, that all this condition that we had gotten into with creating a denomination, creating the fact that they were just taking you for money and making your life live in hell, as if your life ain't hard enough already, as if your life wasn't hard enough already to try to make a little bit of money and scrape a few dollars together and buy some rice for what's it up to now, 58 cents or 58 pesos in the Philippines, or 55 pesos in the Philippines for the regular rice. As if your life wasn't hard enough to be able to come up with that, then these people told you that you needed to pay them 10% of everything that you already didn't have to start with. Okay, that you were already getting robbed because you weren't getting justifiably paid for your labor, and then you have just barely enough to survive on, and then you got to give 15% of that to the church. Give me a break. Okay, that's what terrible conditions we were in. We were being completely stole from by these people. Okay, terrible things like that. That's just one example. Okay, I was telling the wife, I said, you think about it. I said, everything that you had to confess, everything that you did, so that you were just completely controlled by these pastors, these people. So what I'm saying is we were in a terrible situation of sorts. Okay. Then I get over here on the other side of it. Toriello Yonza made a great statement whenever he said that we are on the, or William Branham, I guess, said it, that we're on the backside of the Bible. And then Toriello Yonza basically said, well, hey, we're doing it's the opposite of everything now. Once you're on the backside of the Bible, then you're on the opposite side of it. Okay. So then I get over here, and I get to looking at the condition that everything is going towards now in the message now. If you could call it the message, in the post-third coming message, the third coming message. I get to looking at everything that's going on over here. I get to looking at how that they are making a denomination out of anti-traditionalism, that they are doing the exact equal opposite problems, that they are creating the same problems that we had for the past 2,000 years in Pisces, these same terrible problems that tortured us, that the love divine and all this new age, whatever message is creating the same type of denominationalism in an equal opposite form. It's creating a situation in which it used to be that we had denomination based on tradition. It was everybody was in a denomination because they had a tradition that said that they had to do it this way. Well, now they are denominating off of the concept of anti-traditionalism. It's just now it's like you can't, it's like it's a sin now to be a traditionalist, and it's a sin now to be whatever, negative or whatever. It's a sin. This whole thing has done nothing but take the church problems that we had and bring it in an equal opposite form over into now on the other side, on the back side of the Bible. All we did was we took all the problems that we had and implanted them over here in equal opposite form. Now, like I said, you're essentially living in sin if you have any traditional ideas or whatever at all. It's the same. They don't call it sin. They don't call it condemnation, but it's an Aquarian version of condemnation and sin. If you're negative, if you have any traditions in you, the whole thing. Okay, and I'm not saying the traditions are good, but they're on the same hand. I'm not saying it's not good to be denominal essentially against tradition and to make that a sin, to make backwards thinking a sin, whatever. It's just as bad in the opposite direction. I'm not saying backwards thinking was good. I just said it sucked. But I'm saying that making traditional thinking essentially a sin is to suck in the opposite direction. Okay? So I say all these things. I say these things like this. I say we're just in the beginning of it. I can't explain it all. I can't explain what's going to go on for the next 2,000 years, but I do know enough to know already and can see where it's headed and where it's going to end up. Because you think about it. What did we have for the past 2,000 years? Well, at some points, it was complete control and torture. You know, you couldn't say anything or do anything that the church wouldn't completely, hang you up on a pole or burn you at the stake or whatever. That's how bad it got. And I'm telling you all, it's going to get that bad again in an Aquarian form before this is all over with. I'm telling people it's coming. I can see a little bit of it already. I can tell these things, okay? And then I come out and say these things. And because I'm concerned. I'm concerned because I see it going in the same equal opposite problemhood that it's been in, okay? I'm concerned about these things. And what does everybody look at me and tell me and say? What used to be that, hey, everything that you believed is now here. The Christ is now here. And they're like, well, just love everybody, brother. Just don't even concern yourself with something that important. And then I'm over here and I'm like, hey, you guys are getting ready to create the equal opposite terrible things that happened to us for the past 2,000 years. You're getting ready to do it again in the equal opposite form. And what's the response I give? Well, just love everybody, brother. Just love everybody. We don't really get too much into that. Just love everybody. The main thing is to just love everybody. Horse's ass. Horse's ass. That's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous response. I'm telling you all something that is very serious. Just like it was very serious, hey, you guys can come completely out of all that tradition that you had because Christ is already here and he's made you clean because he never left, and you don't have to worry about these things anymore. Okay? That's pretty important. Okay? And they're all like, well, just love everybody. That's the main thing, just love everybody. And then I'm over here and I'm like, hey, guess what? You guys are getting ready to create the exact same problems that got us in equal opposite form, that got us into the condition that bred people that could never believe that the Christ had come and freed them from all their sins and whatever. You're getting ready to do the same thing in equal opposite form. You're getting ready to create the same terrible problem in equal opposite form, or have already done it. And what's the response I get? Oh, well, just love everybody. We just, we don't. Well, that's just, people's got their own ideas. The main thing is just love everybody. Yeah. That's about as crazy as if somebody come to you and said your whole family died in an earthquake, and somebody said, try not to let it get you down. Give me a break. Give me a break. That's the name of this little snippet here. It's just give me a break. It's just ridiculous. I can't believe how ridiculous this thing has gotten. It blew me away that the message people could not understand that. And I understand, well, they got to whatever. I don't, look, maybe they're blinded, blah, 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 whatever. They're still ridiculous, okay? You got, like, I've been saying this for a long time. Stuff's obvious. You got the Alaska earthquake, 1964, all these pyramid stones, William Branham, all this, the King's Sword, Israel becoming a nation, 1948, Mussolini going into Ethiopia and Libya and fulfilling what Daniel 9, 10, whatever, my gosh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, all this stuff, and they're like, well, and you bring that up to their attention, they're like, well, I don't know, I just love everybody. That's just ridiculous. There's nothing you can say other than that's just ridiculous that anybody would believe that once you've shown it to them. Once you have made it clear how all of those things, it wasn't like we had one or two, and you could say, well, it does seem like a coincidence, but I'm not totally sold. No, we had like 50 freaking things that said, hey, this was it. Okay? And it's not like I got just one or two things over here in Aquarius saying, hey, we're getting ready to do the equal opposite problem that we just created and get ourselves into the same equal opposite problems that the terrible church situation had us into because of what it had gotten to. Okay, I ain't got just 1, 2, 3 things. I ain't got just one or two things here that says, hey, we're getting ready to do this. I say them every day, all day. On Facebook, I say every day, all day, all kinds of stuff that proves that we are getting ready and already are doing this stuff. Okay, and creating this equal opposite problem that's just as bad as what we had there that we all rag on and say was ridiculous and obvious and they couldn't see it. What we got here is a forward version of it, and it's ridiculous and obvious, and these people can't see it. It's just as ridiculous. And it ain't like I said, it ain't like it's just, well, it wasn't just like it was just an earthquake in 1964. My gosh, that was just one of 100 things that happened in William Branham's ministry that was the return of Christ. Okay? It's not like that they're just one thing over here in the age of Aquarius, in this beginning of age of Aquarius, that I'm seeing that's starting to turn everything over. That it's getting ready to, that it's the opposite form of ridiculous that what we had in Pisces. It's not just one thing. I get on there and I say it constantly, all the time. I've been saying it for 10 years. This, and this. Go look it up if you don't believe me. Read my Facebook. I can't tell you right now. But, you know, if you don't believe it, read what I'm saying. I give stuff all the time and say, hey, you know, this looks an awful lot like what we come out of in an equal opposite form. And, you know, and it's obvious, thing after thing after thing. It's obvious, and it's ridiculous that nobody would notice it. I got 100 things over here that proves that we're doing the exact equal opposite thing of what they did in the William Branham stuff. Now we got the message has returned to us in the form of the love divine and spiritual energy. We got a new message here. Is all we got. We got an equal opposite message is what we've got. But what are they saying? They're saying the same thing. Well, just love everybody. Just love everybody. You know, we don't get into you know, we at the end of the day we just don't want to yell. I've heard that before. It's just give me a break. I've heard this. It's the same line, same crap before. You try to tell them something, you go to the Message Church and say, hey, you know, all this stuff and that, and I'm like, well, love everybody. And you try to tell this Love Divine group the same thing, and they, you know, all these things, and they just look at you like, well, just love everybody. Yeah, give me a break. Give me a break. That's it. That's all I had to say.